The 7th of September 1940 marks a turning point in the Second World War. It's the sad but official start of the Blitz, the relentless bombing of the Greater London area by the German Luftwaffe. After having lost serious numbers of men and machines in aerial combat during the Battle of Britain, the Germans changed tactics. They decided to bomb London and other important targets by day and by night to try and force the British into surrender. This day was not only a turning point for the British civilians and battered Royal Air Force, it was also the start of a grim and very difficult period for the Luftwaffe men. They were being sent up for more daily missions and were exposed to hostilities for longer periods of time. The attack pace had gone up dramatically. German ground crews had real difficulties in patching up battle-damaged aircraft, rearming operational ones, and preparing newly arrived machines. The crews themselves had very little relief. The Battle of Britain had left many empty seats at their dinner table. By the evening of the 7th of September, 1/3 of the Luftwaffe had already been put out of action. Much more was to come. Kampfgeschwader 1, based at Amiens in northern France, had sent up 4 Staffeln, 4 squadrons of Heinkel's 111, all H-2 models, to London. Amongst them was aircraft V4FU, V4 being the Staffel marking for the German cross on the fuselage belonging to the 4th Staffel. They had successfully dropped their loads in the afternoon of the 7th at around 4 p.m., and in doing so, they killed over 500 civilians and wounded over 1,500 more. On the way back, as well as on the way in, the Heinkels had been attacked by Spitfires. The Royal Air Force had one big advantage. They were able to refuel and rearm much faster than the Germans, and were able to have multiple tries at shooting down the same enemy formations. Original reports tell us that it was common, as a German formation, to be attacked 3 to 4 times by the same British aircrafts. Our Heinkel, the V4FU, was hit several times in a dogfight over the Channel. They had to drop out of formation and fly low. The engines sputtered and the machine felt heavy and unresponsive. The pilot struggled as it was very difficult to keep it under control. The flight path to Amiens had to be aborted, as the crew was sure they were not going to make it that far. At 6:58 p.m., the heavily damaged Heinkel was seen flying over Merkem, a couple of miles north of Ypres in Belgium. 2 crew members were seen bailing out. Later, these turned out to be the radio operator and a gunner who managed to land safely. The aircraft kept on flying at lower and lower altitude, keeping the remainder of the crew from jumping because their parachutes would simply not have the time to deploy properly. At 7 p.m., after a failed emergency belly landing, the medium bomber crashed into an empty field next to a Belgian farmhouse. Many German soldiers were billeted in the village of Merkem and rushed to the scene within minutes. It is thanks to one of these Wehrmacht soldiers that we now have pictures of the event. What they found on arrival was total devastation and 3 of their comrades who had lost their lives. They were Hauptmann Rolf Paul von Neumann, the pilot, 29 years of age, Oberleutnant Walter Brand, bombardier, who would turn 23 within the week, and Unteroffizier Erwin Kohn, 24 years old, who was the flight engineer. 4 bombers had been lost and 12 others badly damaged. And this was only for this squadron. Many more, in other groups and squadrons, would suffer the same fate in the 8 coming Blitz months. In total, the Blitz operations would cost the Luftwaffe over 3,500 airmen and 265 aircraft. Only days after the crash, everything had nicely been cleaned up. A German salvage team came by and took everything. If you have seen my other videos, you might know that farmers often find parts of airplanes that came down in their fields, so I talked to the farmer who owns these lands. He never found anything. His father had told him about the events, but they never really showed any interest in it. Being in the Greater Wipers area, it is prohibited to search the fields with metal detectors. The entire area we are standing in now was no man's land during World War I, and many unexploded shells and tons of shrapnel are still coming up every season. This German Heinkel will probably never gift us with a small fragment of itself, but history has, nonetheless, provided us with 5 original photographs taken only minutes after the crash. I find these to be of at least equal value, An airman is an airman, whether he flies with the Allied roundel on his wings or the German eagle on his chest. The loss of a loved one is felt similarly by his family and friends wherever he came from. War does not determine who is right, only who is left. These airmen will not be forgotten. If you like our content, please subscribe and follow us for more.